This is the Beige and The Bold, and today we are watching Hero Worship. I'm Van Velding, and I caused this episode to happen.
I'm Derek. There's no way you caused this episode.
You ready?
Yeah.
And 3, 2, 1, engage. Another chapter in this thrilling primetime drama.
I don't know how anyone keeps pace with this episode. It is just a real nail biter.
It has all the speed and alacrity of gravity itself.
What was it? What was last week? Tachyon Wave? No, something. Souls on Waves.
Souls on Waves, yeah.
Which can either be fast or a weapon.
It's got the short range and weak interactions of the gravity fields of which it talks so much about and knows so little about.
Riker's like a full sensor sweep. Captain, are you ready? It's quite a sight, isn't it? Yes, most ancient formations of the galaxy. All right, let's do it. Let's get closer. And they just they're about to. Well, okay, I didn't queue up that one correctly, but they're. I told you. Oh yeah, okay. Here they look at each other and step closer, and just like this dramatic. And Riker's putting his hands on this, poor ensign's, back of her chair. And I'm thinking, of course, Data, he can compose 5 symphonies while he's calculating pi just for grins. But I mean, this chick, just trying to do her job. And Riker's looming over him with his 6'3" frame. And it's like, man, just kind of back up a little bit. You don't really need to be right over their shoulders, do you?
Yeah, your presence has an effect on people. But, he's acting. He's interacting with the setting.
Yeah, and that's fair. In my mind, I think that there's a certain amount of performance when it comes to middle managers that I've seen in the past. And in my mind, I imagine there have been some of them who looked to Star Trek for their, quote, moves. And if you do that, just don't. Just try to be authentic. Try to look at your reports as peers. You're all trying to get something done.
Yeah.
And we switch scenes to this very alien-esque vista, and you have the green, the steam, the gnarled metal, and I'm just waiting. Dead dude.
That dead dude brings the room together.
I mean, yeah. If you're gonna rearrange this way, you really need kind of an organic element, and the corpse really kind of ties it all.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep it fresh. You got to bring a new dead dude in like once a week.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a small price to pay for the kind of overall aesthetic.
Yeah, to be on the cutting edge of interior design, I mean, you gotta pay a little bit of money.
Right, and this is interesting. Kind of made me wonder when that beam fell. Like if whoever was manning the teleporter was like Johnny on the spot, could they have just given Geordi Kitty Pryde powers? Like, could they just have teleported some of his body away, or just made him incorporeal for a brief moment and then corporealized him maybe like 2 or 3 feet away?
I mean, the episode tells us that later, and I think there's a lot to talk about with transporter stuff. What I love here is that they're like, hey, a hardwire connection would take too long. We need is a laser to transfer information quickly.
Right. And it's like, it's not even like the fastest way of data transfer. Like, sure, light is like, oh, it's so futuristic, but why isn't it X-rays? Why isn't it, an invisible mesh of, ambient waves that, just transmit data ubiquitously?
Why not a clear cord with a reflective internal-facing external surface that,
it's
light
made
can
out
travel
of
one very quickly.
Space. Yeah, it's not just fiber; it's space fiber.
Yeah, some kind of fiber visual cable, something like that. But whatever, shoot lasers at it.
Yeah. And so we're doing like a little bit more of exploration. We've done the whole ship scan before, right? Where it's like, hey, are there any life signs? And I think they tried to do that, and they said, oh, it just so happens metal is hard to get through. It's like, well, didn't we do that before? I mean, the whole ships are made of metal all the time, right?
Worf, couldn't you find life signs in the middle of the ship? And Worf was like, there was metal and stuff in the way. There's so much metal, but like in a way that it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, it's like, well, Wolf, I don't understand. You know, we did this 2 weeks ago, and you had no problems with the metal. It's like, yeah, but this metal's all hinky. It's not where it should be. It's very confusing.
Yeah, dude, it's a mess up here. So
yeah,
there's a kid that's still alive, and hence our plot begins. Which is that this kid is like the sole survivor, and we know he's not Unbreakable Man because he's not miraculously uninjured.
Yeah, we haven't met Mr. Glass yet, so there's no way there's an unbreakable person.
Exactly, no way. Who would that be?
And
deaf guy?
Who would it be?
Anyway.
Probably Barclay.
Oh my God, Barclay could be Mr. Glass.
I mean, if he went down the darker path where he just like never like improved himself, I could see him just becoming so emotionally fragile that like it had a literal effect on his bones or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I can just see him giving the briefing. There was one survivor captain, and he was miraculously unarmed.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Okay.
Well, that's an interesting report, Mr. Barclay. But we have another concern. We've been noticing that in your replicator, you've been producing a rather large amount of C4 and then transporting it with the teleporter. Can you explain your actions?
Blowing up smaller starships looking for Superman? Well, that's reasonable.
Oh, yes. Well, you're running experiments. Very good, Mr. Barclay. All right, next issue.
We're out here to do science.
Right. At the cost of human lives.
It's a pretty good model. I don't know if it's been remastered or not.
I like how you can kind of, like, if you squint or you focus on it, you can kind of see inside the decks. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. It's a heck of a detail.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the kind of thing you like. It makes the transport, it makes the universe look a little more granular.
Right. You know, and when you don't have a lot of this guy. I imagine just O'Brien off to the left, like, no, you're doing it. No, you gotta use the invert. No, your buffer's overflowing. Oh, just get out of the way. Let me do it.
Yeah, I just kind of imagine Jim Kirk coming in from off screen, pushing that guy away and trying to transport himself. Like,
yeah.
Come on, get out.
Maybe that's right. Maybe that's where Riker learned his moves. Is like the micromanaging of Jim Kirk. It's like when you find that you can't get the best out of your Starfleet personnel, I find that it's best to push them out of the way and show them how to do their job.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, aren't you dead, Jim Kirk? And he's like, that hasn't been written yet. We don't know. Continuity's open.
Yeah, and it'll always be open.
Jim Kirk could appear at any time. Just think about it.
Right, anytime, any place. It is kind of funny how we have essentially like a very wordy self-sacrifice, and there's no pushback. There's like, yeah, so the android do it. Let's peace out, Geordi. It's all right, later. But I mean, we've been in certain situations before where it's like, no, I won't sacrifice you. No, I can't let you take that risk. I'm your commanding officer.
Yeah. I think we've established that in the series. And this is just another thing that only one member of the team could do. Like if Worf could
do it too.
Yeah, and if Worf was there, they shoot dice for it or something. I don't know. But
paper, rock, scissors. Paper, rock, scissors. Paper, rock, scissors.
Yeah.
He's like, listen, I am the crowning jewel of Starfleet. I'm better at everything for everybody for all future, and you just need to realize that you're looking into the future ruler of all human life. I mean, future ruler of Starfleet.
You know, he has
I like how he does this with one hand too. It's fun.
Yeah, with one hand. I like how he waits until the thing starts spewing gas before he starts running. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, he's like, all right, let's go.
So yeah, this is like our third falling beam scene that gives us danger.
Yeah, I thought this kid couldn't walk. I thought it was kind of weird that he kind of scurried out of there like a rabbit, and I thought, oh wow, like I thought he had like his leg broke or something. He didn't even like try to crawl up. Yes, be afraid of the doctor. She'll experiment on you.
To be pinned under the wreckage, he has to assume the same pose as someone whose legs are broken. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, that's the language of television you're always talking about. I mean that is definitely my legs are broken underneath this rubble pose.
Yeah. And, as you mentioned earlier, like, as they're beaming out, the beam just goes plonk right through them. And, like, we saw an episode where a dude tried to shoot Riker while Riker was transporting and it bounced off and killed that dude.
Yeah.
But now, like, beams just fall through it because us, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird. And, here, this is where Picard's talking about, like, oh, we've begun counseling the kid. It's like, oh, cool. So your ship's counselor is not there. Just some doc who did a med rotation and the android with no emotions.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of laughed at the absurdity of such a thing. But then I was slightly happy to see Troi here. I was like, okay, at least Troi is there to make sure they don't do anything too stupid. But she should have totally been given she should have totally been the one to give the lines, not Beverly Crusher.
Hey, Troi gets to be in other scenes. I think this might be the end of Gates McFadden's appearance in this episode. I feel like she walked off screen, checked off her contractual obligation, and just kept
all right, peace out.
I'm going to do theater.
I'm going to get some Jamba Juice later. Yeah. Yeah, and this is, Picard is kind of like hanging out in engineering because he's a hands-on Papa Captain. That wants to see how things are going. And he just like, no, he doesn't do it now. He's about to do it, where his finger passes through that little. No, does he? Does the finger pass through it, or it looks like it could have? I guess.
No, I think we may have joked about that in the pre-roll. We're like, what if his finger had gone at that data stream? Would they have lost data?
Yeah, maybe so.
He's just trying to get up to speed on what's going on and giving us some
it's a nice little effect though. The laser in the background.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
It's subtle. I missed it the first time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they got no information here about what happened because all the sensors and data banks are broken and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like how I know I'm kind of in the minority, but I like how we have a genuine mystery that isn't some sort of Sherlock Holmes, rehash story. And, whereas normally, there's a lot of mysteries in Starfleet. I feel like this one has, the mystery is the only thing we have here. There's no kind of espionage plot or planet exploding or sentient entity that wants to consume all human life, anything like that.
Yeah, there's no other problem that the mystery solves. They're just trying to write a report about what happened at the Vico. And as the episode progresses, it turns out that part of Picard's deductive style is to just do the same thing and plan not to die instead.
Right. Because he's a man that enjoys his risk.
Yeah. But this kind of gets to our main plot. That's not the gravity plot. And Data's like, hey, Geordi, have you ever been terribly traumatized as a child?
Yeah. Geordi, there's something that's been puzzling me. Can you recount the worst possible thing you've ever experienced? This kid's really confusing me.
Yeah. And then so Geordi walks all the way from here to like the opposite side of engineering. And Data's like, why Geordi walk so far stage left? So he can give a good monologue. But
yeah, I mean, you got to let that camera pan and get the zoom in.
Geordi gets so little characterization. I just love that he does.
Yeah, if you're of a certain socioeconomic class, there's a good chance that you've been in a situation or two that stuck with you the way Geordi's I was surrounded by fire when I was a kid story sticks with you. Yeah. I know personally I was in the emergency room more than once growing up, so.
Yeah, and I think, if you're poor, you have more traumatic experiences to pull from. And,
right.
I think I talk about the post-extinction behavior sometimes where, like Looney Tunes is about farm animals, and they were made during a time when America was more agrarian. So those were farm animals that came with some built-in characterization from viewers who generally knew those animals and how they acted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when you talk about house fires, seems really out of place in Star Trek.
Right. It seems like the computer will be like, hey, your room is about to catch on fire. Would you like me to stop that? Or is this intentional?
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, a house fire is such a normal thing. Like,
right.
Unless he was actually on board the USS Enterprise D as a child.
Right. Yeah, maybe his dad was part of Starfleet and then they went to some weird firefight and the room caught on fire. This freaking dude here is like, hey, listen, you need to follow along the curriculum. The curriculum says you sit down while I tell you a story about mythology. Why don't you leave the dude alone, man? He went through some trauma. Just let him do his thing.
You gotta have some expectation. I don't know, whatever. I think you're being way too mean to Space Kenneth Parcell.
But maybe so.
So yeah, it's like, sir, here we found some stuff and some things, but like we cannot take you seriously, sir, with that jacket on. Can you put on a real uniform?
Right? But I put on the jacket so you would take me seriously.
No one takes that jacket seriously.
Right. I mean, we did just see him in the other uniform, right? When he was down in engineering, and he went back to his office, like, oh, Papa Picard, it's cold. Let me put on my jacket. Oh, wait, I can't wear the jacket red on red. That just won't work. Let me take off my shirt, too. And...
Time has passed. School is now in session.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So, he's like, school's in. Time for Picard to change clothes. I think we just mentioned the Breen here. I want to mention that the Breen will be important later.
Right. Okay. Interesting. We also kind of realized the reason why Starfleet keeps so many hostages aboard while they're doing potentially dangerous things in space is their backup black boxes. In case, case the black box gets corrupted like it is in this episode. You have some kid that you can just kind of suck information out of.
I mean, if you're not Troi, who is completely incapable of reading people's feelings if they have too much trauma.
I mean, come on. I mean, she's been around humans. I mean, she's been around Beta Zeds all her life. She's presumably trained around humans and had training with people to counsel in trauma. This can't be the first time she's like, oh man, trauma is really hard. I can't use my empathy powers. I forgot how to use them.
And Worf was like, well, that's a real convenient excuse for screwing up, Deanna. And then he's like, oh yeah, Worf, who couldn't read life forms because things were all hinky 20 minutes ago? Huh? Nothing on the ship works for like no reason.
Worf does the most amazing feat a Klingon can accomplish and blushes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Deanna.
So now we've kind of developed our main plot of Data, but with Kid.
Yeah, I mean, Data's like, I don't remember Dr. Troi. I don't have any emotions, so I may not be the best suited. No, it's precisely because... Actually, it isn't. He latched onto you, man. Just be there. It's fine.
I don't care. It's 420 somewhere. Later dates.
Yeah, peace out. Mama Troy's got to go blaze one.
Yeah, and so Data's like, oh, wow. What do I think of your thing? What do I think of your thing? Yeah. Do you really want an opinion?
Yeah,
like a couple seasons back, Picard asked me about his painting, and I gave a frank assessment. In fact, I actually hedged a lot, and he was all pissy about it. So, like, you sure about this?
Yeah, I mean, I only pointed out that his painting had an utter lack of style, which I found fascinating because I didn't think it was able to accomplish.
Yeah.
I love that face that Brent Spiner gets. He's like, are you sure you want me to give you a frank evaluation? But this is, if you're going to give me, I love how I just wrecks this kid. But if you're going to have an android that does not have any emotions, then those sorts of questions are like, wait a minute, you're a human. Are you doing that thing where you're saying you want a thing, but you really don't want a thing? That should happen a lot more often than it does.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it happened here. It shows some growth on Data's part. And this kid, though, he just said it lacks style. And the kid's like, it sucks, you hate it. It's like, geez, dude, don't extrapolate from a single data point.
Yeah.
Or a single data sentence. Just let it... Yeah.
But I mean, come on. Of course, what's this kid thinking of doing? But yeah, I mean, that's fine. He's like, it reminds me of those infomercials where it's like, have you ever had problems frying an egg? And it's like, rah, rah, like stabbing into the egg. Like, come on, man. Like, you know how to use blocks.
But it comes across as authentic kid acting. Like, one thing I don't complain about with this episode is the portrayal of Timothy. It seems spot on.
Yeah, this kid's definitely doing a lot of work for sure. And I like how Data doesn't know that he's abandoning this kid again. Like, he's like, and it's like, oh, I know what the kid looks sad. I know what I can do. I can totally showboat. Yeah, I'll just do that and it'll be fine.
That's good. I think the fast forward is a little bit too fast. But
yeah, or it's choppy. Like, it doesn't feel kind of smooth. There's something off about it for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if they could have shot it in reverse and then sped that up if it would have been more natural. Because I think, like, Brent Spiner still has to take care to place the pieces when they're doing it at regular speed. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So there's like a different speed to that. And I wonder if he had just taken it off.
Yeah.
And that would have been a lot quicker. And it would have been a lot more smooth. But if I ever get a time machine to go back, I will do that and then get around to killing Hitler if I can. I'll let him know.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have priorities when you're time traveling, that's all.
Your forgettable TNG episode didn't come across on screen too great, guys.
Right.
Got a gun.
And so this is kind of interesting where, the kid kind of latches on to it. It's like, so you're just a superhero. But what's really kind of interesting about this particular scene change is I really like this shot that we're about to see where we kind of focusing on Timothy a little bit, and it really kind of it's like a humanizing element, because essentially Timothy's in kind of like an apartment complex on a deck somewhere, and they have all these other rooms, and so he's got neighbors and all this other kind of stuff, and we never really got that before. I never really got that sensation before now, I feel.
Yeah, one of the legit criticisms leveled against this show is how it doesn't feel lived in. It feels kind of sterile. Yeah. Like there are grips who are wheeling the characters from scene to scene. Sometimes people are messy, but it never feels organic.
Yeah.
So to have this kid with this emotional Sudis be in this corridor with Data who's trying to do his job somehow works.
Yeah, and I wish we could see more of that stuff, more of that kind of lived in organic feel. But it sounds like that's not going to happen. But I'll take it where I can get it for sure.
Yeah, it's not the chief goal of Star Trek, which is basically a stylized morality play. Doesn't need to feel organic. It's nice when it does, though. Yeah,
for sure. And so here we're talking about our not Timothy plot, where it's like, hey, the dog cluster, that's so ancient and beautiful. He's like, hey, do you have any? Have you got any more information out of the other black box? I mean, Timothy.
Yeah. So, and they're like, so we got nothing. All right then. Still a mystery. Moving on.
So wait a minute. We don't know. I just want to repeat back so I understand, Captain. We're going to go into the Black Cluster. We don't know anything about it, and no one ever has come out of it alive. Is that correct? Yep, that's what we're doing. Okay.
I mean, there were smaller ones. People have come out of the smaller ones, just not the big one.
It's just a bigger, smaller one. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So,
I do like how this little kind of shot here with Troi, because she totally does a poker face when the kid says something problematic. But I mean, that's what a counselor does. A counselor doesn't want to kind of give someone who's kind of going through some difficult emotions this sense that they're being judged. You kind of want to let things play out.
Yeah, and that's what she's doing. She's playing out lines. She's trying to figure out what's happening, which conveniently is something the audience wants to know as well.
Yeah, and I like this. He's latching on to kind of Data's behavior patterns, but yeah, man, those sweets look pretty pro. I think I want some ice cream. But he's like, oh man, Data doesn't eat ice cream, and so he's like, but we do eat when we like to. So yeah, I'm gonna have some of the ice cream.
Yeah, he reconciles that, and there's some very, basic but effective layering going on here that you can see.
Yeah, for sure. And for a kid, I mean, that's something.
Yeah. I like his sweater too. That's obviously patterned on Data, but not quite a copy.
I mean, I guess like all of the sweater and stuff, like that's the replicator. Like essentially, if I wanted clothes, I just get them from the replicator. Is that right?
Yeah, which raises the question of why it doesn't look more like Data's uniform, but whatever.
Yeah, or maybe it's like not authorized to create a Starfleet uniform.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Like it knows. I don't know. It's like impersonating a Starfleet offer is illegal. The United Federation of Planets. Okay, never mind. Just give me something like it.
You'd be arrested. I can make you the shirt, but I'll have to notify security. So.
Worf will come in here and we'll break the door down. I mean, the door has been getting along quite well lately.
Yeah, Deanna says this is in Antiomedia, I think it is, which is a Jungian concept.
Right, from like the 20s or something.
It's like the generation of psychology after Freud, if I remember correctly. Which is a big step up. Usually they would just go with Freud on this.
Right. And there's some overlap between, I think, writers and like the old kind of very broad strokes, Freud, Jungian psychology. And it really just kind of showcases how uninterested or willfully ignorant the writers were in learning kind of how a kid would kind of go through trauma. Just like, well, I guess they didn't have Wikipedia, but like we took Encyclopedia Britannica off the shelf. We did a little researching, and yeah, this looks like it fits, so we're going on with it.
I would say that it is the job of the writers maybe to choose selectively their level of education, and that they have to communicate ideas to the public, and the ideas have to be accessible to the public. And I think this one does neither one. I don't think the public recognizes that, and it's not particularly educational. Yeah. I think it's just a bad reference. Yeah.
And this is kind of interesting too. Data's about to get Data's doing like this kind of his barber thing, and I didn't realize like they had like water or something.
Yeah,
in these combs. But he's definitely kind of getting his hair slicked back.
I like how Timothy asks the question that always gets asked of AI in science fiction settings: why don't you run everything? So you ask it for The Good Place, you ask it for Schlock Mercenary, and you ask it for Star Trek here. Like, why? You're a perfect computer. Why don't you run everything?
Yeah. It turns out humans are, well, not better, but I don't know. It's not always the best. I do like how go ahead.
No. Sleep things.
Yeah, I like how, here, like, Data just kind of got wrecked. He was like, hey, the kid's like, hey, I can't dream. I've been having some trouble dreaming. It's been scary. And he's like, what about you? What do you do about dreams? He's like, I'm an android. I don't have to worry about dreams. He's like, oh, wait. Have you been having bad dreams? Nope. I'm an android too. It's like, damn. Touche.
It's rare to see Data have a misstep. And it's a completely organic misstep.
Well, right. And it makes sense as a misstep around human emotions. He wouldn't have caught that. Because he's supposed to not have them.
And the thing is that if you write these alternative life forms correctly, then they'll have their own organic flaws or inorganic flaws. And the thing is that, if you don't just say, oh, look, he's stronger and smarter and therefore better, then you end up with really weak writing. And you have to ask, why don't you run everything? But whenever he makes a really simple mistake that's true to the paradigm established for what he is, then you're like, oh, well, that's why he doesn't run everything. Because there are a lot of things he's not good at that we take for granted as people.
Yeah, for sure. And so I like this. We have Data kind of generally paints kind of observable reality. He doesn't really do abstract or surrealism. And, here we have this kid, just a whole bunch of black pointed edges and red abstract painting. And that contrast really goes a long way to showing kind of the mental state of this kid. Because it isn't just an aggressive painting in a vacuum. It's being compared to Data's kind of tranquil, scenery painting.
Yeah. And, as much as we talk about how Data screwed up 2 scenes ago, he tries to get something out of the kid's subconscious and then immediately sets him up with a blank canvas to share the thing that he's trying not to share. And it's great.
I mean, I'm not convinced that Data is... I mean, I guess he's supposed to be working with Troi to get information out of this kid. But I just don't feel like he really has any sort of agenda here.
That's a fair take on it.
And so Data's like, hey, listen, we should open up to each other, right? That's kind of his direct kind of method. He's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up. I'm going to really by example. At times I have difficulty sharing my thoughts with others. Looks over the kid's sleeping. Damn. This happens every time I try to share with people.
He's gone full banner at the end of Genius Playboy Billionaire Philanthropist 3. Yeah, it's like, what? Yes, there was a party in Prague? I fell asleep at that part. But
right.
It's good. And Data gets to be paternal.
Right.
That's interesting.
And even though this kid is totally not... Well, I mean, I guess he can be... If you're if you stayed up long enough, then yeah, you probably wouldn't wake up at this kind of bit. But Data definitely doesn't understand human anatomy, because that kid's gonna wake up with a crick in his neck so bad.
Yeah. It's a cliche though, like carrying a kid up to bed is kind of a cliche parent moment.
I hope when he's doing his pop and lock maintenance, it doesn't wake the kid up.
He just wakes up and Data's staring at him.
Yeah, exactly. What's that weird sound? Yeah, no one ever mentions that. But yeah, anyway. So this is kind of an interesting bit. It's I guess supposed to be kind of this notion of like the waves hitting the Enterprise, which I imagine, I've never been on any big ships, but I imagine that's a common occurrence on big ships.
Yeah, the bigger the ship, the less the waves really matter to you. And
that
for just
sense,
like a floating box, like you're expected to have some waves like this. This isn't so unusual.
Right.
But for the Enterprise, they have inertial dampeners and artificial gravity fields. And so if they're taking like these rocks, then they've got to be taking a beating from the outside.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of like that Road Squadron thing where like one of the guys just turned his inertial dampeners way too high, so that's why he didn't feel the hits he took and blew up or something. I don't know. Some weird Road Squadron thing one of our friends said about Star Wars.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds exactly like the sort of granular, excessive Star Wars pre-Disney beta canon. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so I mean, we're like, all right, we're in the middle of our like op, right? Like we're close to this big black ancient cluster that we know anything about. And he's like, hey, listen, it's like 7 times mass than anything explored. So maybe what we're feeling right now is just because of the economies, well, not economy scale, but just sheer scale.
It's time to play with graduated cylinders. Woo, graduated cylinders.
I remember my graduated cylinder class.
Oh my god. I'm sorry. I appreciate they're at least trying to
make the yellow ball. The yellow ball is so unlucky. Nobody ever wants the yellow ball.
Yeah, I appreciate they're trying to make the curriculum look futuristic.
Yeah, I guess so. And I like that. Whereas, like, he's like, yeah, he's starting to let go of the fantasy. He's like, all right, cool. Then I'm out. Peace.
Yeah.
Troy's like, not so fast.
Troy's like, yeah, kids take a lot of work, Data. You're in it now. It's all over you.
Yeah. Remember, like your cat. Remember how it took you a while to train your cat to use the human toilet. It's kind of like that. Oh, so I need to potty train Timothy. No.
Oh man, we have not started on the nightmare that Spot is.
Okay, all right, interesting.
Apparently, he just hasn't trained the cat. I mean, spoilers for future episodes of TNG. The cat's insane.
That's good. Okay, I can't wait now.
So yeah, I think we may have missed the part before where Data's like, I don't have human feelings, and sometimes that makes me sad.
Yeah. I mean, and we kind of get like a version of it here too, where it's like, hey, how do you think it tastes? Is it good? He's like, yeah, I can't do that. He's like, what do you mean? Oh, that thing that you're talking about, having fun with stuff. Yeah, I can't do it. I don't have those emotions. And he's like, wait, what?
Yeah, there's a biological basis for the feelings that you have related to your sensory inputs. And Data, as an organism with ostensibly no internal drives, it's just analysis and data.
Right. Yeah. It's once some of my neuropositronic inputs, receive a signal over a certain threshold, then I realized that I should probably put my hand away from the fire. But I'm not afraid of fire.
Yeah. I'm mostly fireproof.
And human proof, and laser proof, and gravity proof, and I can run everything all by myself, and I could probably take out all the Enterprise. I should probably stop talking now. Yeah, and so this is where it's like Data's like, man, I wish I could be more human. The kid's like, but why would you? Being a human sucks. He's like, well, I would take kind of a little bit of suck for a little glimpse into what you guys seem to have.
Yeah, and it's a good moment. The crux of this episode is that, yes, Data's great, but there are drawbacks to being Data. And I think a good way to explore that is to have a kid who sees Data from the outside and goes, hey, I don't have disdain for you because you're a robot. And Data's like, wow, this is such a break from the routine. And
that's never happened to me before, thank you.
Everyone generally just says, wow, you're so awesome. You suck. F*** off. And
get out of my way, Android. That's not where it goes, Android. All the time.
You killed my son, Android. So yeah, I have someone who's just sort of unabashedly positive and sort of introduce him to the nuances of Data. And in so do it, us. But also, whatever this is, so the gravity wave.
It is kind of funny how they're kind of assigning Data, like, hey, get next to this kid, and then they just keep calling him away. Where it's just like, hey, hey, find out everything you can. Hey, get to the bridge. Hey, have you found out any progress on Timothy? It's like, you just called me away from having dinner with Timothy. What's your problem?
We were having a moment. I was getting through to him. I'm sure I'll be able to just pick right back up where I left off when I go back down there, buddy.
Yeah. I'll say, hey, can we resume our previous conversation? And kid's like, what?
Jordy, come up here. How much progress have you had giving a back massage to that database? She was like, he's just loosening up. All right, well.
Look at this. Anyway. This is just so goofy. Picard's like, let's do an experiment. And okay, what's the experiment, sir? Are we going to like scan it and find out its internal properties? It's like, I want to shoot it. Okay.
It's another way the phasers are being used for scientific reasons.
I guess. And they're probably like low magnitude phasers. I like how there's kind of a fractal pattern as they kind of disperse, which is kind of neat. And even though we've seen people take over for Data, it's so funny that it's like, Data, come here, I want you. It's like, oh, what do you need me to do? Some complex calculations? It's like, nah, just sit where you are normally and answer some questions. I could have answered these questions where I was. Nah, you couldn't have.
Yeah. I just don't buy it with phasers and refracting and gravity and weakly interacting.
Bring the black box to my office. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of the emotional high point of our episode.
Yeah.
Because they're like, none of the things you've told this kid, works out. And if you're an android, you can't lie. We're going to go right into manipulation right now.
Yeah, and this is kind of slowly trying to create a safe environment where we can ask him difficult questions, and hopefully he's around people that he trusts enough to where he can answer them, and there's gonna no blowback. He hasn't really built.
Sorry, he says I killed them all, and then we cut to commercial. It's like they all died. They all died because of me. Try new Dawn hand washing soap. So,
it'll kill all your enemies.
It's a hook. Not
just the women, the children as well, and not just the men, but the women and the younglings. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, and he thinks that he killed everyone because he hit a panel when the ship was rocking, which is like, it's great. At least a giant Cleon trophy didn't hit you.
Yeah, I mean, we had a kid on here last week, and he totally had 3 fractured ribs and just walked it off. Mistakes happen, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But this is kind of interesting. This is kind of standard child psychology. When they're kind of young enough, when kids are young enough, they kind of think everything is as a result of something that they did, even though when it clearly isn't. And so him thinking that he killed the ship because of a coincidence is totally on brand. But they're doing a good job here. It's like, listen, we're not just trying to save your feelings here. Let's explain. I'm going to explain to you why it couldn't have happened. Not just that it can't happen and you have to believe it, but we have all of these redundant safety systems. So there's no way you could say, I don't know, put your butt on, a computer terminal and activate a laser of some kind.
Yeah, like, I completely do not buy that these people have access codes. They just rock up to other people's consoles and are like, yep, fired phasers, 2 buttons. I'm like, which one of those was your code, fella?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's biometric, you could say, but I don't know.
It's like they don't show us people logging into their consoles every single time. Like, except you can't blow up a starship with the flailings of a 10-year-old. You just cut off a 10-year-old's arm and slap it on a panel and make a ship explode. Like, we get that.
Yeah, and we didn't have to go. We really didn't have to explain it. It was like, listen, there are a lot of redundant systems to repeat, to prevent kind of these errant mistakes. And so don't sweat it.
Look,
and we didn't have to kind of go into the details, but we did anyway, and that's fine.
Yeah, like, look, kid, look at your hand. See, that hand is about the size of Riker's butt. Our consoles are designed to ignore any kind of contact across that large an area because of Riker's butt. It ends up on a lot of consoles, mostly Worf's, right, but all of them. In fact, don't touch any of the consoles, kids.
Right.
The man is
Timothy
promiscuous.
Becomes like, that's why the bridge smells so funny.
What?
We called it the fart effect. But yeah, we don't talk about it because Riker feels called out.
Yeah. So,
but I like this. So, essentially what we're using this situation plus Data's like ability to analyze things and the incomplete data of the black box. We're merging the two black boxes together, and we're gonna eventually extrapolate what we should be doing in this episode. Which, surprise, surprise, in true Starfleet fashion, is going to be the opposite of what you would expect.
Yeah, it does remind me of the season 2 episode where they get sucked into the time vowel and have to go into it to get out of it. But I do like that the ship's getting hit with these gravity waves, and Picard's like, "We're solving the mystery. We're solving the mystery."
I love risk. Survive. I just repeat to myself, I love risk. I'm a risk taker.
Look, it's fun though, and it's a fun little solution. Like, we don't care about the stupid gravity waves, the resonances, and the shields.
And then this is kind of good, where he's like, they're just yelling at Road 4 to get things like, and then we get the special numbers. Look at these numbers, man. That's the solution.
And there's enough time for Data to go, it's a resonance effect. But instead, Data just sells it with his intense glare.
Yeah, I would love it if like he could have solved this while like demonstrating how stupid Riker is. It would have been the best. Okay, Riker, let's compare our ability to calculate pi. I'll go first. Blah 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 blah.
Or he could have just turned around, been like, "Well, it's a resonance effect." Neck pinches Worf, turns off the shield. Yeah, I totally killed if he kept the shields up.
Okay, that would have been the best if it was just like, that's suicide Data, and he neutralizes everyone and does it anyway. Oh man, that would have been awesome. I don't like this explanation though. It's like harmonic garbage in space. Like, whatever, man. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, gravity is waves, shields, generator.
It's like waves with energy inside.
Frequencies. Borg, tracking beams.
Any of this techno battle doing it for you? This is kind of all we got. We're at the end of the episode here.
All right. This is my report. Captain Jean-Luc Picard to Starfleet Command. USS Vico died to not having a Data. The end.
He's like, all right, so should we mass produce Data? No. Only I get a Data.
Yeah, I know this happens a lot. 20% of all starships are lost because of not having a Data, but we can't copy the game.
Yeah, but, everyone learned a valuable lesson, and we all lived happily ever after. Well, I mean, except this kid. Timmy still doesn't have parents. Like, that kid's gonna have a rough time.
He's an orphan now.
Yeah. Womp womp.
Yeah. They tow the wrecked Vico full of dead bodies back to... Hey,
Timothy, it's time to start making yourself useful. Help dispose of these corpses of your former friends and family.
Gotta find them all, Timothy. You're the only one who can identify all these corpses. So just the toe tags.
Exactly. He's like, that's my cousin Ricky. Oh no, Martha, what did you do?
Why was I related to everyone in the Vico?
I was a clone. I was a clone this whole time. Anyway.
So
so this is we get like kind of go ahead, sorry.
I feel like this is just them telling us that he's back to normal, but it's a denouement we need. He's not traumatized anymore, I guess.
Yeah, and there's some merit to having kind of, I mean, not data robots, but emotional robots in some certain medical kind of situations. And so I don't think this is like a Starfleet knew about tablets before tablets were a thing moment. I think it's really just kind of a coincident where we have some technology being used in a similar way to old fiction.
Yeah. But final thoughts. Hero worship.
So, I mean, you called this a forgettable episode, and I get it. I can see why that would be the case. I personally like kind of episodes where there's a mystery and some bit of kind of emotional catharsis. And so I think this is a decent episode. I enjoyed it. I feel like it's maybe more of a Star Trek episode than some other Star Trek episodes, especially ones where it's all like explosions and laser beams. But I can understand why people wouldn't like this episode. I feel like it could have done a little bit more, and it definitely doesn't. It tries. It's basically like Data has feelings. Data has feelings. One episode where it's like, hey, everyone, I don't have feelings. Okay, we gotta go back to this again. And then Data starts having feelings without us talking about it.
But I don't know. I think we made some progress with Data. I don't think it's a bad episode. I think it's just forgettable. It's good. Yeah. It's well crafted. Like, there's no huge flaws there. At least none that aren't inconsistent with itself.
Right.
If neither Deanna nor Worf can do their jobs, we'll just suck it up.
Indeed.
That's it. Next week, we are watching Violations.
Right. So Netflix gives us this card with Deanna Troi on her back in kind of a prone position. She looks like she may have just been pushed down or fallen down kind of like on her backside. And she looks like she might either be disoriented or maybe in pain. And this is what we get by way of summary. Transporting 3 Ulilian mind-probing historians. Okay. The Enterprise crew is stymied when some of its members fall into a coma. Yeah, I'm not excited about this episode. I mean, we've already established how willy-nilly Spock is willing to be when it comes to the Vulcan mind meld. So just when I see Troi in a prone position and mind-probing historians, I have cause for concern, I think.
Yeah, you're really getting the hang of the Star Trek thing.
Thank you.
We'll watch it next week. And until then,
remember Rand.
I'll make this short because no one likes credits. Star Trek is property of CBS Television Studios and Paramount Pictures. We are watching Star Trek on Netflix. We are talking over Discord. And we are recording and editing on Audacity. The Beige and The Bold is hosted on Anchor and can be found on most podcasting platforms. I would also like to thank our senior officer Patreons for supporting The Beige and The Bold. They also make video editions of this podcast and remasters of old episodes possible. So thank you to Tracker by Moonlight and Miss Jess. If you have any questions or concerns about the show, please contact me at vanvelding@gmail.com or on Twitter @vanvelding. Thank you, and remember Rand.